And now, a show with inappropriate language, the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week the world is batshit crazy. I know I talked about the coronavirus a little bit last week, and I'm going to talk about it again. I mean, this is the biggest thing the world has seen in our lifetime, and it affects everything, and we are still in the early phases. I've been talking to my friends on the East Coast, and the ones I've connected with are still going to work, still doing shit, and that is scary to me. What's even more scary is that when I take my dog out on a walk, I live about a mile from Alki Beach, which is one of the only beach spots in Seattle. This week, the weather has been amazing, which is not always the case in Seattle, and people have been out in full effect. I've gotten as close as a block from the beach before I decide to turn around because it looks like a crowded summer day. I just keep thinking to myself, I don't want to get what all of those people are going to have. I've been really hard on my lungs in this life, and who knows if they can handle the beer flu. That's my mindset when I see this shit. If you are in the group of people that is heading out and about and not taking this thing really seriously, then you are most likely going to get this thing. Is it going to kill you? Most of the people that I know and most of the people who listen to this show will be fine. Sure, some will die, but for the most part, I don't anticipate losing too many friends or listeners. Family, that's another thing. You'd think older people in this world would be smarter about the choices they make, but that doesn't seem to be the case so far from what I've seen in my family. So Powells, whatever you're doing, stop it and go home. Aside from the sickness and the getting sick part, coronavirus is going to have a huge impact on all businesses. And I'm sure that a lot of you are wondering what impact it will have on the industries that fuel our passions. And it's up in the air, really. We all are going to know people who are going to lose their jobs because of this. A lot of businesses will go under, and a lot of dreams will be crushed. This financial fallout is going to be hard to watch and even harder for those that have to live through it. But like I said, we're only at the beginning of this thing. And so far, my life during this insanity has been doing podcasts. While this sucks for most people's work, I found that it's easier than ever for me to lock in my guests because everybody's on lockdown. And then I edit and research. So other than taking my kid to school in the morning and picking him up in the afternoon, my workday is pretty much the same. I wish everyone could say that. When I'm not doing my normal social isolation in my studio, I'm walking the dog, doing some homeschooling with Keaton, throwing the football, playing badminton, exercising my lungs, VRing, gaming, and watching TV with Ange. Another thing I'm doing is reconnecting with old friends. I have so many numbers of people that I like, but I don't talk to anymore in my phone. So one way I'm going to counter the lack of human interaction during this quarantine time is that my happy hour is going to include reconnecting with someone from my past every week. It seems that whenever I move from one chapter to the next in life, I always lose touch with the people from the last chapter, so this quarantine is going to have me reconnecting. While this whole thing sucks, I do like to find humor in everything, but even that is hard for me to do this week. Instead of making jokes about this thing all the time, I'm only doing that half of the time, and I spend the rest of my waking hours worrying that I have coronavirus. I must have taken my temperature 100 times in the past week. And I'm okay as of today, but who knows? That's the really scary thing about this thing is you can have it and have no idea. One thing I do know is that we are all in this together. And I'm going to be asking all my guests about this, as everyone has a different experience. And with everything in life, I'm going to guess that the richer you are, the easier this whole quarantine thing is, unless you die from it. But you aren't here to listen to me talk about this whole seasonal flu thing. You're here for an interview, and my guest is the youngest in a line of brothers that are innovators in the world of freeskiing. Vincent Gagnier, aka Vink, aka Vinni Cash, is the last of the Gagnier clan, and like his brothers, his unique brand of X Games gold medal skiing is still not completely understood nor fully accepted, but it sure is entertaining to watch and really technical. Vinny and I talk about his brothers, about his life and times, about what he thinks of the state of free skiing as it stands today, and a whole lot more. But before we get into the podcast, I want to ask you to tell a friend about the show so they have something to listen to during this quarantine, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to me at. Finally, I want to ask you to support my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optic, 686, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk to Vincent Gagnier. We were talking a few weeks ago about doing this podcast in person in Seattle. You were going to be heading to Baker to go hit some jumps. Who were you going to meet up at Baker?
The Blank Collective crew, but that all got canceled. So Too bad.
So you didn't make that trip. I think you ended up hooking up with Joss and hanging out in Salt Lake for a little bit. And then you got in your car and headed to Canada. So was that the program? It's like you heard about the virus, it got serious, and then you got out of the States?
It was mostly because the border was going to get closed for Americans to get into Canada, and I just wanted to cross the border before that's a thing. And I don't know, it would just have taken longer to cross the border, so I did it before they closed it.
Was there any difference in crossing the border this time than the hundreds of times you've done it before?
I mean, it was a longer wait, probably an hour and a half before I could pass the border, but just an extra couple questions, but nothing much different.
They don't take your temperature or anything like that?
No, not driving. I guess at the airport they might do that, but that wasn't the case driving.
Do you live by yourself or do you live with the family? How does that work?
Back in Quebec?
Yeah.
Yeah, I live with my parents still.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, especially now because you were going to be confined to a house for a while. Is that your plan, to be quarantined?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Right now I'm in Canmore, Alberta, and I'm going to make my way to Whistler for a couple weeks there. And yeah, go to quarantine there for a couple weeks and see how everything evolves.
So you go to Whistler to quarantine there. I mean, that just sounds like it's a recipe for trouble. Do you have a place in Whistler?
Yeah, I rented an Airbnb a while ago, so I'm still going to go.
So you're carrying out your plans. Will you see anybody there, or will you just sit in a place by yourself and be on the computer?
Well, I'm with my girlfriend right now, so we'll be hanging together.
Okay, so you're good there.
Yeah, it could be worse.
So you're going to Whistler, but you're from Quebec, and you have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, I believe, which is a huge family. Where do you fit in that mix?
I'm the last one. I'm the baby boy.
So did you have no rules whatsoever growing up since they got through them all with your brothers and sisters?
I mean, still had rules, but I was for sure the best placement in the family, being the baby.
2 of your older brothers are very important in the progression of free skiing for the first 2 decades, and we will talk about them throughout the podcast. We won't talk about Pierre or your sisters much, but are they badass athletes as well?
Well, he's a pretty good skier, but could never really figure out how to ski switch or hit a jump switch. So that kind of put a stall to his progression, but still a really good rail skier and like one of the first like masters of 50/50s on rail slides, like one ski 50/50 style.
Yeah.
That was like really his thing, and he was really good at that, still is, but never could evolve to like a professional career, unfortunately.
And your sisters, are they super talented at something as well?
My older sister, Frederique, is more of like the artist in the family. She's like a really good singer, and she like went to a school in Broadway for musicals and stuff like that.
Did she perform?
She tried, but it's a hard place to make it. A lot of competition.
For sure, just like skiing.
Yeah, exactly. And my other sister, Virginie, she used to ski. She was a really good ski racer, but she blew her knee when she was 17 in a skier cross contest. And after that, she kind of stopped skiing and just snowboarded all the time.
She the only snowboarder in the Gagnier family?
All the girls are pretty much snowboarders. My mom's a snowboarder also, and Frederique's a snowboarder. But my sister, Virginie, though, there was this contest at Mont Saint-Anne at her home resort, and they had a 100-foot rail. And she slid the whole thing on her snowboards, like in 2003 or something, like a long time ago.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So being that your whole family is really, really talented, I mean, you guys all have a signature style to yourselves too, I feel like. But your parents, are they supremely talented as well? Are they athletes?
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of like average in everything, but they do like a bunch of stuff. Like they're super active. They play golf, tennis, they ski. Yeah, they don't stop.
Okay. And here in the States, they say it costs about $250,000 to raise a kid until they're 18. That figure for your family will be a little less because you're Canadian, so we'll say like 200,000 loonies per kid. But that's over $1 million in raising kids. What do your parents do?
So my dad's a dentist and has his own dentist office. And my mom works as like a secretary, or she oversees all the secretaries in the office.
Okay, so it's like a family business?
Yeah, pretty much.
And dentists absolutely crush it. I know because I had a root canal during this whole lockdown thing, and it cost me like $1,500 for an hour. So I know dentists do well. So that's how your family is able to raise 6 kids.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a shit ton about skiing throughout the podcast, but before we get into skiing, is there any other sports in your life? Do you skateboard? Do you rollerblade? Do you BMX? Do you do anything when you're coming up?
It's mostly skiing. I did a bit of rollerblading, but everything's so scary on rollerblades. So I kind of did that, but never really tried to do anything with it.
I only ask because a lot of the tricks that you do today and the style that you have on your skiing, a lot of it does resemble rollerblading based on your backslides, and you're doing royales and a bunch of different tricks that you have different names for on the ski side. But did you ever look to rollerblading for inspiration for your skiing, even though you weren't rollerblading that much?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we had a couple rollerblade movies at our house that we used to watch, and yeah, for sure got a bunch of inspiration from it. I think it was Denial Underestimated was the movie.
Adam Kilgore.
Yeah, that movie was really sick. Had like the two brothers, what are their names?
Kelsos.
Yeah, the Kelso brothers, and yeah, Rob Thompson too
Yep.
was in that. I mean, they were way advanced on skiing on rails, so it's just an easy place to get inspiration for.
Yeah, I mean, I've always looked at it as most of the tricks on skis were done earlier on rollerblades, I feel like, at least rail tricks.
For sure, and especially all the switch ups and spinning. I would say that's the one aspect in rollerblading that I don't like, is like when they just spin. And that's the same thing in skiing. That's the one thing I hate the most, is just people spinning to spin.
Are you talking about spinning in the air, like swaps, or what are you talking about?
Swaps on rails and just doing too much instead of doing less.
So what did you think about like the stepped crew and guys like that? Not all the gnarly stuff, but it seemed like there was just swaps on everything.
They weren't the biggest swappers. They were more big features. I feel like maybe level 1, like 2007, 2008, 2009, they were a lot of switch ups. That was for sure not the era I like the most on rails, at least.
Okay. And then coming up for you, winters are all about shitty snow, small hills, gnarly landings, and bitter cold. But you have no choice for that. And pretty much what your family does, they ski a lot. And do you get into it from like a really young age?
Yeah, I guess when I was like 1 year old, my brothers and sisters would get up in the morning in their ski gear, and I would try to put on boots and try to follow them, but I had to stay home. Yeah, it was really inside of me. I really wanted to ski from day one before I even skied.
And with your brothers, and I'm sure your sisters too, I think there's a little bit of a race background, which in my opinion is a great thing for everyone. It builds an amazing ski foundation, and you can see the skiers on the pro level now that had a race background when they were growing up. You can see just how solid their foundation is. Were you put in a race program as well?
Yeah, I did racing from age 6 to 10. Yeah, I stopped after my 10-year-old winter. So yeah, I did like 5 years of racing.
And at the end of your race career, your brothers are already... Charles is 8 years older than you, and Antoine's 12 years older than you. So
Yeah.
while you guys might not have hung out for a long time, they were more like babysitters when you were younger, you were able to see their skiing evolve. Looking at your older brother skiing, Antoine, I mean, the stuff that he was doing back in the early 2000s was weird. He was like an innovator in skiing, but everybody thought he was so out there, and nothing was really accepted that he was doing. Do you remember that?
I mean, both Antoine and Charles were so much ahead on everyone, like on rails. They were like almost 10 years ahead of everyone on so many tricks. And I guess that skiers back in the day were really close-minded. Like, they just had to slide under their bindings, and the only thing they thought was a trick was like a 450 out, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, they just had a super close-minded opinion about skiing.
And then your brother comes in and he's Machioing stuff, alley-oop soling things, I feel like. He's got a section in Union Assault and in Beaver Tail.
Yep.
There was a lot of recognition, but like you said, way too early for the sport. He had the one edit with breakdancing in it. What was up with that?
The breakdance skiing?
Yeah.
That was just his imagination. He just wanted to do something that no one else had thought of doing before. And yeah, he did it. It's quite impressive.
It is. And are you a breakdancer as well?
I did when I was younger, like maybe like 6, 7, 8, but that was about it. I never really tried to keep it going. But like breakdancing is how Antoine got all his inspiration for tricks, like way more than rollerblading or anything else.
And I heard growing up you were like the standing flip guy. You just walk around just throwing flips everywhere, and that was more your breakdancing moves.
Yeah, I used to for sure do like a running backflip. That was for sure my thing. Still is, probably. But could never figure out how to do a windmill properly, so that kind of stopped everything.
I can do a windmill. Boom.
Nice.
Yeah, I can do a windmill
Nice.
and backspin. That's about all I can do.
That's dope.
So Antoine never really got his credit. Not even a nod down here in the States, I feel like, for the shit that he was doing. But everyone did want to talk about your brother Charles, and he was a little bit more accepted, given he was still doing some stuff that was misunderstood and weird. But he was blowing up when you're like 10 years old. He's winning the X Games and traveling all over. And were you a super grom with access at that point? Like super into everything skiing, and then your brother was connected, so you got to be around it all?
Yeah, that was like perfect timing because I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, like starting to get like tricks under my belt, like doing switch sevens, switch nines. And Charles was, winning the US Open, the X Games. And with Solomon at the time, I got like the best hookup a young kid could ever have and started traveling the world with my brothers, going to France and the US for film shoots and stuff. It was crazy. I was really lucky.
Are you in the film shoots too, or are you just there on the sidelines?
I was there for like the Solomon Adrenaline Hunter promo videos. I don't know, they would have them in shops and give them for free. I had a part in that when I was a little kid.
So you're involved with the Solomon program through your brother, and I think once they see a little kid who's doing well, they want to keep doing more with them because there's not that many little kids that are badass.
Yeah, pretty much. I had the last name to go with it too. That for sure helped.
Yeah. And some of the things that Charles doing is still misunderstood. With judges, do you see him get screwed by the judges because they don't understand what he's doing?
Yeah, he did get screwed probably the most out of anyone in ski history. But he got screwed even more when he was unknown, when people didn't know who he was. Because he could spin all four ways before anyone knew what spinning all four ways was.
Right.
So there's like 1 year, I think, at the X Games qualifier in Breckenridge. I think it was 2003. He got eighth place and spun all four nines in his run, something that had never been done. And he got beat by people who like did 540s and like a switch five. But people like started knowing who he was after that contest because he got screwed so much. So I guess getting screwed kind of helped him in some way.
Yeah, but judging impacts your whole family. I mean, the way you guys ski is different than everybody else. It's not drastically different by any means. It looks the same, but some of the grabs and spin and style are totally different. And when you bring a trick to the table that you find is totally unique compared to like the latest triple and you aren't scored well, what does that do to your mindset?
It sucks. It's frustrating.
Do you ever have words with the judges?
I used to, but the judges they don't know anything about skiing. So I don't know. Having a conversation with them is not the best thing, I think.
Do you talk to them before the contest to see what they're looking for, to let them know what you're going to throw so they know at least the degree of difficulty that's going to be dropped in your run?
I think it's better not to tell them what you do and just have the wow factor. That's always been my thing. Because I've never really done my tricks in practice before the contest. I would just send them when I had to. I think that helped me for sure a bunch of times.
Can you think of a time that you lost a significant amount of money because of judging?
I mean, there's for sure a few. There's one time, I think it was 2014. Well, I still got second at the contest, but I should have won easily.
That's a big difference in money when you should win.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it was 2014 Frascan Invitational in France. I did like the first Dub Bio 16 in history there, and a Dub Bio Dub Genie like I did at X Games the same year. And I got beat by a Switch 180 triple backflip and a Dub 16 mute, like two tricks that we had seen like for years prior. And yeah, I got beaten by that. So that was kind of bummed, but whatever. If I get on the podium, I would always be happy and can't complain too much.
And I know that you are an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to skiing. I mean, when you grow up with brothers like you did, you're involved in the scene and you're going to know every single thing about skiing. And I think it has to do with videos and really every aspect of the sport. So your opinion here is something that I'll value. And the last judging thing I'm going to ask you will pertain to real ski this year. There were some insane edits, and I'm not sure if there's a winner yet, but in my mind, it was Jake Majot. But I'm no pro skier. In your mind, who was the winner of that contest?
I would have to say Jake also. I don't know, if you bring something new to the table that you can't really visualize until you see it, I think you should get recognized for that. and be awarded for going crazy and doing stuff that you didn't think was possible.
Yep, I totally agree. Now it is time for me to take my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start it out with Evo. And if you haven't been to evo.com, well, that's where it all started, and you can still go there today, even in the face of COVID-19. I do need to let you know that Evo has closed their retail locations until further notice. It's the responsible thing to do for employees and consumers. I wasn't surprised when Bryce decided to be the first retailer that I know of to shut all of his doors while still paying his employees. That's the kind of person that he is, and he built his site, evo.com, to be the best in class for all things ski, snow, bike, surf, and beyond since it went online in 2001. They carry all the brands, all the products, and all the things that you need to go out on your adventure. And with these challenging times, it's more important than ever to buy whatever else is on your list to keep you entertained while we are distancing. While you're over at evo.com, check out some of their branded products that are as good or better than the big brand stuff. When you check out, you'll get 20% off of branded gear using the code POWEL20. And Evo offers free shipping on orders over $50, a low price guarantee, and a no-hassle return policy. My next sponsor is 686. They have been the independent outerwear brand in snow since 1992, and they make the best gear on the planet. That's no bullshit. My 686 Glacier jacket is the best jacket I've ever owned, and it comes with a lifetime guarantee. The whole Glacier series does. And since 686 shipped me a pair of Everywhere pants, I've lived in them. They're so comfortable, and like all 686 products, there's so much attention paid to the pocket, style, and detail. Let's be honest. Times aren't great out there right now for a lot of things, but it happens to be the greatest time ever to get your hands on some 686 outerwear. Starting today at 686.com is the sale of all sales. So head on over to the website and get 40% off all Gore-Tex styles and most apparel site-wide. My final sponsor during this break is Stanley, the brand that has been a leader in keeping things hot and cold for over 100 years. They invented the vacuum bottle, and you've seen it so many times in your life. You know, that green bottle that kept your grandpa and your dad's coffee hot all day long? Well, Stanley still makes a bottle like that, now in a bunch of colors, and they work better than whatever you're using right now. The reason Stanley is the leader in hot and cold is because their product is better. I mean, they created the category and they keep innovating. But Stanley makes so much more than that iconic bottle. I personally use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and my drinks stay hotter or colder than yours by at least an hour. You deserve that same quality. Now you can get 30% off all Stanley products by heading to their site, stanley-pmi.com, entering the code POWEL and the number 30, all one word, and boom, it's that easy. I just saved you money. Those are some of my great sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. By the time you're in high school, you know what you want to do with your life. You want to be a pro skier, and the path is already set for you. You just have to follow it and stay healthy. To do that, you want to go to the States. There's a school in Salt Lake where there's coaching and a lot of things, and not that you really want coaching, but it's going to put you in a place with a lot of great skiers. And how are you able to convince your parents to send you to school in the States?
So that all came about because of Alexis Godbout, my good friend from Quebec and fellow skier. So he was going to go to the winter school in Park City. And I don't know, just through him and just knowing that having to go to school from mid-April to mid-November was going to be the best thing for me if I wanted to be a pro skier one day. So yeah, did that through Kerry Miller too, was like the guy who put us in contact with the school and took care of us for those years.
So that opens up a whole nother bag of questions. Kerry Miller, interesting person. He's worked with Tanner Hall. He's worked with a lot of people. Hey, you've heard nicknames Scary Kerry and a bunch of other things. What is your relationship with that dude, and what is that dude all about? Because I don't want to call him a weird guy because I don't know him. But it's strange to me when an older gentleman like that is always around younger kids and having them move away from home to schools. So what's that dude all about?
He's just a good guy trying to help kids make it. I mean, he helped me so much. I really have nothing bad to say about Kerry.
And I don't know him at all. I have nothing bad to say either. It's just a weird situation from the outside looking in.
It is weird, but he was just a mentor, legal guardian. But he was like the chillest legal guardian. Like, we would like party on the weekends, come back, and he knew we were drunk. He would take care of us. And yeah, it was great. He killed it.
Sounds like a perfect guardian.
Yeah, it was fun.
And when you go to a school like this, I'm sure it creates a ton of opportunities for you. They have water ramps and coaching. That doesn't really seem like the route that you would take, though, because you seem like a creative guy that coaching would kind of stifle everything that you do. How do you take to coaching and water ramping in the summer?
Well, there wasn't like really real coaches at the school. You could do coaching at the water ramps because this school was right next to the water ramps. So after having classes, you could go to the water ramps. But I hated water ramping, so I just jumped on the trampolines the whole time. Yeah, hated water ramps.
Speaking of trampolines, is it true that you got yourself a super tramp at home, too? So you had that just to mess around with when you were bored?
Yeah, I do have one back home. It's pretty awesome.
Are those things way more expensive than your traditional trampoline?
Yeah, way more. Way more.
But then you get like 5 times the air?
You just don't have to work as hard to go high. That's what's really fun. And you have so much space too. Like I don't have any cushions like around the trampoline just because it's so wide, and yeah, it's really fun.
Nice. Who is the crew that you're skiing with when you're in Utah?
Just now,
When you were in school?
when I was in school, well, pretty much Josh Christensen, Alex Slvsh, my good friend Dakota Schlag, mostly people from school who were like around my age.
You know, I've interviewed both Joss and Slopey. Did you witness Slopey's path to destruction?
Not fully. I mean, I knew he wasn't in a good place, but I didn't know about all the hard drugs. I just knew that he was a super talented skier and just didn't really have the passion to ski every day. So I don't know. He kind of blew it.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing for you there's no thought of college because your ski career is starting to take off and your parents must be comfortable with that based on what Charles and your older brother did. But a huge difference between Charles and you is your personality and the way you speak. I mean, I would see Charles at contests and other places. When I did, he was always shy, and when he did talk, his English wasn't the best. So it made it really, really hard to market him in North America, I would think, for his sponsors. But you, it's totally different. Doing high school in the States, it made your English just, you don't even have a hint of an accent almost. Did you feel like that helps you with your career just based on you speaking better English?
I mean, for sure. Before going to school there in Park City, I like couldn't speak any English. The first 2 months were really hard for me at that school. Like, there's so many words I would read and I wouldn't know what they meant. But after a couple months, you really start to get it. And English is a really easy language to learn, actually.
So that definitely helps you in your career, and I think sponsors are very appreciative of that because they can use you for a lot more things where you couldn't really just throw Charles in front of a camera, have him do a big interview that was going to be put all over North America because it didn't sound as good as a dude who spoke better English. And that's no fault to him because English is a second language. But you speak great, you ski amazing, and sponsors want to be a part of your career. And while you don't have a huge list of sponsors, who are the people that take care of you?
Rockstar Energy, O'Neill North America, also Blenders Eyewear, and Solomon Free Ski.
Blenders?
Yep.
Whoa. I didn't know they were sponsoring athletes. I just see them on Instagram all the time. And yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I'm the only skier on the program, so it's pretty awesome.
And it looks like they are swimming in cash. They sell so many sunglasses, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's dope.
And I like to talk about money on the podcast. And in skiing, you should have a more unique perspective than most people because you have 2 older brothers who did this as well. Did Antoine make any money in skiing?
No, not really. He had like one contract with Sun Ice back in the day that like got him a little bit of money, but nothing crazy.
Was that with Felix?
Yeah, with Felix.
Okay. And I would think Charles, in his prime, he was crushing it. He came up at the right time. He had a bunch of sponsors. And I'm guessing he made over 6 figures, probably between $100,000 and $200,000. Am I close there with him?
Yeah, for sure. He had a really good deal with Solomon, no doubt. And then other sponsors too. But Solomon was for sure the big one.
And then I would think in your world, the numbers aren't even close. I would think you're making a fraction of what Charles makes, and a good deal of that comes from your energy drink sponsor. I guess I could go so many places here, but have you ever made 6 figures from skiing?
I mean, through contracts and contest earnings and bonuses, yeah, I have. I have for like 2 or 3 years, but you can't keep making that nowadays, I feel like.
Well, it seems to get harder and harder every year. There's more people, less events, and when your brother came up, it was the golden era. Everybody had a rock star team of like 6 to 8 dudes and they were all making serious cash. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, but you're making six figures, so that's amazing, and congratulations to you, because not everybody can do that in skiing.
I don't anymore, but I did at some point.
Okay. And with your ski career, it looks like you're the best of both of your brothers. The weirdness of your older brother with a mix of Charles's spin and grab wizardry, and then you combine that with your own variation of future spins and rollerblading tricks and never thought of grabs. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't even know why I even said that. But you're in the grind of contests early on, and you do that for about 6 years, and everything's firing for you. 2013, I think that's your first X Games. You also do the Red Bull Play Streets event. Is that the first huge event that you're on the podium for?
No, first big event was 2011 WSI Big Air. I got third there. I was 17 at the time. But I would say my first big breakout was second place at the Yoon Olsen Invitational in 2012.
So it all starts in 2011 and then starts building from there. So you have Yoon in 2012, then X Games, which is huge. Then you go to Play Streets and you end up on the podium there. And that's an interesting one because you end up third place at Play Streets, but your brother wins that, which is cool, but it would have been way cooler if you beat him. While you seem like a really chill guy, are you competitive at the same time? Like, did you want to beat Charles, or are you just stoked that you guys were both on the podium?
I wanted Charles to win over me for sure, any day. But no, not competitive between my brothers. We're just want to do the best that we can and be different from the rest. That's always been the goal.
Okay. So 2014, it's lining up to be the biggest year of your life. I mean, you go to the X Games, and this time around, you've got to be more comfortable with everything. It's such a big event. You end up taking second place. Everything's coming together as planned. And it's late season in 2014. You are on a shoot with Rockstar at Grand Targhee, and you see a flat down from the chairlift, and you can take it from there. What happens?
Yeah, so we're in Grand Targhee for like a Rockstar team camp kind of thing. And going up the chairlift, and it's a down flat down rail actually. And it was pretty high. But I mean, so first run through the park, go through it, ski some rails, and then I see that rail. Matt Walker's in front of me and decides to bail out at the last second on the rail. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I ain't no pussy, I'm going to hit it. So then I go to hit it, slide the down part, get on the flat, and then just edge cut my front edge. And it like sent me into like half a flip. Yeah. And like I landed like straight on my back on like some pretty icy snow because it was 11 a.m. in April, so it wasn't soft yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, knocked the wind out of me really bad and knew that something was bad with me.
So you're laying on the ground, and does Matt come over? I mean, Matt's in front of you. So you're on the ground hurt. What happens?
So I probably stayed on the ground for like 30 seconds trying to catch my breath back because I couldn't breathe for some time. And then I stood up and then went to like some chairs and then tried to take my breath again, still there. And then ski patrollers started to talk to me and asking what happened and everything. And from there, we started trying to walk back to like our hotel where we were staying, which was like probably like a 5-minute walk from where we were. And I was with the ski patrollers there. And while I was walking, I just felt my legs were giving up and they stopped working at some point.
Oh, man.
And I like fell to the ground, and the ski patrollers, they grabbed me before I could like eat even more shit on the ground.
So at this point, your mind has to be like, what the hell is going on? Because you count on your legs for everything and they don't work. So they rush you to the hospital from there?
From there, they brought me to like where the ski patrol office is in Grand Targhee. Took my ski boots off there, and like slowly I could feel my toes and move my toes.
Okay.
So from there, it was like game on. I was the stokest kid of life. I knew that I was going to be back at least walking or doing something.
Yeah.
So from there, I just stayed positive, and they rushed me to a hospital in an ambulance. I can't remember the city where it was. I have no idea. And at that hospital, they took a CAT scan of me, a CT scan. And then they saw that my T5 vertebrae was shattered and in a bad place. So, I took a helicopter to another hospital in Idaho Falls. And there I got surgery, spinal fusion surgery the day after.
Do the doctors say anything to you that kills your hope? Like, you're never going to ski again like you used to?
No, nothing like that.
Good, because some people hear stuff like that and it just ruins their recovery. where you came back, it seems like 100%. I mean, where are you? Does your back still bother you?
Yeah, it bothers me every day, but hey, I learn how to deal with it.
And so how long does it take you to get back on snow from breaking your back?
So I broke my back late April and got back on my skis mid-November.
So a quick recovery.
7.5 months or so.
Are you skiing well right away, or do you take everything really slow? How does that work for you?
The first week I took it really slowly and like just started skiing, then hitting rails slowly, doing little tricks. And then I'd say after like 3 weeks, because I went up to Mammoth in early November with Phil and Henrik, and we were just skiing. And by the end of our trip, I was really feeling good. And that's when Phil and I made the half gash, half dog edit.
Yep.
One of the edits that did pretty well for me. My skiing was for sure coming back just in time.
Then you end up in the X Games again. Are you competing right away again to get qualified for the X Games? Do they give you a spot? How does that work?
Yeah, so I had an invite because I got second the year before, so I was straight in the contest.
Okay.
And yeah, that was my first contest back.
It's a pretty big contest to have your first contest back. When you go to a venue like the X Games, it's bigger than anything else that you do, I would think. Are there any nerves on your side, or how do you react to a contest like that?
Maybe the first time I had nerves, but I try to just enjoy it and try to not think too much. Just have fun, really. I don't try to think too much when I ski in a contest. I just do my trick, go back up, and try something else.
If you have a bad day at a contest, does it keep you in a bad mood for a couple days, or is it just something you're able to forget about?
No, it doesn't really bother me, but I ski always my best in contests, so usually I land on my stuff and would be happy. And if I was pissed, it was because of the judges.
So that first X Games back has to be the highlight of your career because you're coming off a broken back and you win the X Games. When you look at everything throughout the years, is that one of the highlights or the highlight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I went from the lowest of lows that a human being could really be at, and then I realized my dream like 9 months later. It was surreal. And like I remember when I was rehabbing back home, a couple weeks after my surgery, I was like walking with my wheel walker around my house, and I was like telling myself, just wait, like you're gonna win X Games next year. And that shit happened, and yeah, just crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And the contest thing, your specialty seems to be big air. And in 2016, you go to Fenway, and it's one of these big stadium contests. There's big money in it, and you can keep all your sponsors happy. You end up winning the Fenway contest. You've come a long way from a dude who couldn't walk. Then disaster happens again for you. You end up blowing your knee in early 2017 at the X Games, and this means game over for you and a lot of pain and hard work. What happens there?
Yes, it was actually on my last practice jump before the contest started. That was rough because I try to get in a good mood before a contest. So I try to go for this crazy old school trick, old school mogul trick. So I did like a back cross, Cossack, back cross, Cossack, back cross, Cossack. And then I think like my last Cossack was too tight to the landing and I went pretty big and I just felt something weird in my knee. I don't know, I felt something, but it wasn't crazy. I only partially tear it there. And then I went back up to the top and just decided not to go because I could just like see the scene in my head in the contest trying something and just my knee blowing. And I don't know, it would have been a horrible scene. So decided to cancel that. And then I got an MRI back home and then my ACL was partially torn. And then at first I thought maybe I'm going to try to ski and see how it is. So I took like 2 weeks off, got a knee brace custom made, skied for a couple days, and then went in the park, tried this down flat down rail, just slid it down flat, then 50-50 on the down part. And then when I landed, my knee just exploded and I just screamed the loudest I ever have, I think.
So you finished it off there?
Yeah, it was finished on that rail. And yeah, I knew that the season was done for sure.
And with that being that you're Canadian and your health care is free, can you get in for surgery right away because you're an athlete, or do you have to wait just like the regular Canadian citizen?
Well, so I'm pretty lucky because, you know, my dad's a dentist and back home he has good relations with all the doctors and everything.
Yep.
And the orthopedist who did my first surgery is one of my best friend's father, so that was really easy.
Did the first surgery go really well?
Yeah, it went well. It was more painful than the second one, but it went well.
Well, if it doesn't go well and it's your best friend's father, that's a problem. But if it does go well, everything is good.
Yeah, for sure.
It's time for my final sponsor break, and the first brand I'm going to talk about is Spy Optic. Based out of Southern California, Spy is the intersection of style, party, and technology. They have been developing the best sunglasses and goggles for snow, surf, wake, moto, and so much more forever. And the products really are better. Nothing on the market compares to the happy definition lens technology that Spy has. While I'd say go to the store and try a pair of sunglasses on and see how much better the happy lens is, how much better the fit is, and how much better you look compared to what you're currently wearing, you can't do that. What you can do is head on over to spyoptic.com, find a pair of sunglasses that you like, and when you check out, use the code POWEL20, that's all one word, to save 20% on glasses that I hope you use to get outside during this time of social distancing. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery, and they have been brewing beer out of Bend, Oregon since 2006. And since they started brewing beer, they are committed to skiing, snowboarding, biking, and drinking beer outside. While I see a lot of copycat brands out there lately trying to mimic what 10 Barrel is doing in the outdoor space, no one puts their money where their mouth is like 10 Barrel. This year, they produced both a ski and a snowboard movie. The ski movie is Watch This, featuring Lucas Walks, and then they have Hold My Beer, a snowboard movie featuring Curtis Cizik. And the plan was for 10 Barrel to throw 3 Hella Big Air events where they give away a ton of money and throw a huge party for everybody in attendance. Unfortunately, the final 2 events at Mount Bachelor and Mount Hood Meadows will be canceled. The good news is that even with all that we're going through, you can still drink beer outside. Next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Profuse Juice, a hazy IPA that I'm loving right now, and a beer that gives 1% of sales back to the Surfrider Foundation. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. So how long from the ACL does it take to get back on snow and feeling good? Because I know I did one and it took me like a year to get back on snow, but I didn't feel regular till like a year and a half or even more. How about you?
I'd say like 9.5 months. Got back on skis 9 months later, and probably like, a couple weeks after getting back on snow, everything started to come back pretty easily.
Mentally, are you thinking about the knee at all?
No, I just wasn't thinking of landing Screamin' Seaman like I used to, like when my legs crossed. So I like put a cross on that and wasn't trying to do that for a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
You have that automatic bid into the X Games since you won it the year before. And what happens at the X Games this year?
Saying bullshit. Second day of practice on the big air jump, there was like this headwind coming on the jump. So I like bailed last second and just went off the side of the jump. And I had probably like a 6-7 foot drop from where I jumped off from the side of the jump to the coping. And my knee just, I don't know, it just gave out. I just went to the ground immediately and knew right away that I blew my knee again exactly a year later.
Same knee?
Same knee. A straight air again, like nothing. Yeah, pretty tragic it was.
I mean, is it just sadness on your part because you have to go through this whole thing again and you're in the prime of your career? Or where is your head? It must be so disappointing.
I mean, yeah, it was, but I tried to stay positive as much as I could. But yeah, it was rough just because I knew that those were my prime years and I was going to do this crazy trick that I had in my head for so long, and I still haven't done that trick. That's really what pisses me off the most about that injury. It's just because I wanted to do that trick and see how sick it was going to be, and I wish I had done it.
Have you ever done that trick?
No, I'm planning on it, though. Hopefully one day. But it's going to be hard.
We won't hear what it is then.
Nah. Never.
Okay. So how long does this one take you to get back on snow?
8 months. So I got surgery later for that one because that was my second knee surgery on the same knee. So it's more trickier to do a second surgery on the same knee, I guess.
Okay.
So I went to this other doctor in Quebec City, Dr. Marquis, who did Phil's knee surgeries also and ABMs and everyone. So he did my knee in April, and yeah, I was back skiing early December.
And is there fear of doing it after that? Because after you've blown your knee 2 years in a row, I would think anytime you're doing anything landing with a big impact, there's got to be a little fear of hurting the knee, especially in the beginning. Do you have that at all?
Not so much, just because I knew like from the first one that everything comes back eventually. So you just have to keep with it and wait for it to all come back along. But what was more in my mind was just to make it through a season healthy. That was the number one thing for me.
And for folks that haven't seen you ski, you do some really hard and strange, unorthodox things that are part of your game. I mean, taking off with your legs crossed and landing that way, that shit happens with you. And for a guy who's had knee problems, I would say stay away from that stuff. But you're right back to it, it seems like. How long does it take you to get back to doing those screaming seaman tricks?
Maybe March or April last year I started fucking with them again.
Okay.
But I'm like pretty smart with all those decisions. I know exactly how to shift my body weight so there's not too much strain on the knees and all that. But yeah, for sure have to be smart with doing stuff like that because shit could go wrong for sure.
Yeah. And then when you come back from injury, are there thoughts of traditional contests anymore? Because based on the complexity of the tricks that you can throw, you are always a threat in a big air event. And big air is going to be in the Olympics in 2022 if we're out of quarantine. Is there any desire for you to go for the gold?
I would like to go, but with FIS taking over, I don't really have a chance to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, they've kind of screwed you because you have to be on the slope style team to be able to compete in big air. You can't just qualify as a big air competitor, and that screws a person like yourself.
Yeah, and you need FIS points to get into World Cups. And since I've been hurt, or I haven't tried to do World Cups for 3 years, I would have to do the NORAM circuit and compete against teenagers, and I'm not going to do that.
So it's not that important to you to get gold if you have to do all the things to make that happen, and it's not a guarantee either way?
I mean, the Olympics were never a dream of mine. I think that any free skier who says that's their dream, they're full of shit. They come from the wrong generation and had the wrong people around them telling them what's cool and what's not cool.
For sure, but you got to think about all the kids coming up right now. I would think a lot of them have Olympic hopes, and they don't probably have the hardcore skier mentality that you have. They have the more, I'm just going to train and get coached, and they might not even be able to ski pow. In 10 years, you might have a guy who wins the Olympics that's not even the greatest skier, but can just huck crazy stuff, and they have airbags and all kinds of stuff to land on. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's pretty sad to see where the sport's going, at least contest-wise. For sure evolved in a really bad way with coaches and people just being so serious, I feel like. And it's for sure not like it was before. I'm pretty lucky. I still enjoyed some of the good years in free skiing before everything kind of turned to shit in contests. But yeah, I just hope that kids stop fucking copying each other and try to think outside the box and be their own selves instead of having the same technique on every single trick as everyone has.
I don't think you could have said that better. One thing we haven't talked about in your career that's a big part of your career is filming, and it's something that you're always doing. But back in the day, you filmed with Poor Boys for a few years. Did you film with Level 1 as well?
I did one shoot with Level 1.
Okay. But you never really had that full part in a major movie when major movies were all that mattered in skiing. Is that a regret for you?
Definitely. I would have loved to have that with Poor Boys, but I don't know. Just didn't happen. But working on something now for this year and next year, so hopefully I make something out that's going to be dope.
Nice. What were your highlights in Poor Boys?
I would say probably just the first park shoot I did with them in Tracing Skylines at Stevens Pass. That was for sure the highlight because Poor Boys was always my favorite production company, and having the chance to film with them, it was really a dream come true.
And filming for you is where your talents shine. While you can do well in contests, I think your creativity really shows when you are filming. When you think of the one edit that people that are listening that might not know about you should check out, what should they see to understand who Vincent Gagnier really is?
I don't know. Probably my favorite one is probably my part from a mini movie we made back in the day. J'ai donné 5. My part in J'ai donné 5 might be my best. For back in the day, at least. I had some tricks that were in advance, definitely.
Well, most of the people that are listening to this are going to be American, and they're not going to understand what J'ai donné deux fois is.
J'ai donné.
But yeah, that's the one that everybody should check out.
I would say so, yeah.
And the most recent headlines around you are for winning the Slvsh Cup in Tahoe. And for those that don't know about Slvsh, it's like a game of skate or a game of horse. It's all about matching tricks, and it's a really cool contest that's been going for a while. To be honest, I thought it would be way bigger than it is and have a lot more support by now. But either way, you win the Tahoe event. And first, how much money do you win in an event like Slvsh Cup?
For that one, it was $5,000.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
All of the results with Slvsh are posted online and kids can comment. Do you read the comments?
I did read them. I did.
Kids have a problem with the way that you play. You do a lot of tricks that are super challenging, a lot of grabs that are really hard for other people to do. It makes sense for you to go to those to get people letters in a game like Horse or a game like Slvsh. But kids have a problem with that. Does that bother you with the comments that they put online?
The kids are really, they don't know anything. Or a lot of the kids don't know much. And they just like to see the same old thing that everyone can do and everyone has seen. And that's just not me. I've never been that guy, so I'm not going to change.
But if you call a 360 with a venom grab, a venom to something grab, you know you're going to get a letter with it. Those kids are all pissed off because they're like, oh, he's just doing a 360 with this grab. And while they might expect you to do bigger tricks, you're calculated in trying to get letters. But are any of the comments really personally mean to you?
I mean, just people that say that like my skiing looks disgusting or whatever, that pisses me off because I work my ass off to make it look good. And the tricks I do are like, they're not easy. That's why people can't do them. And I try to make him look as good as I can while it being technically really difficult.
Well, I think the beauty of it is you do make those tricks look good. But when you do them in a game of Slvsh and someone else who's the same level of skier in terms of professional, they can't make those tricks look half as good as you. So it's one thing that you can do these grabs, but to make them look good is so hard. I think that's the beauty of your skiing. The next thing that you were supposed to do was to be in Andorra, but you weren't planning on attending the Andorra event coming off a win. Why wouldn't you go to that?
Because of the Baker trip I was supposed to go. That was the main reason. But yeah, Andorra got canceled and hopefully next year we'll see.
Okay. And from the looks of things that I see online, you seem to be spending more time in the mountains. And when I say that, I mean out of the park and looking at more backcountry jumps. Is this the evolution of your skiing?
That's what I want to. I want to try and bring my grabs and my tricks on backcountry jumps and just trying to build a full part with some street and everything and do what I always wanted to do and have a full part that I'm proud of.
Do sponsors care at all? Do they want to push you into the backcountry? Do they want to push you to contests? Or do they not care what you do as long as you're creating content?
I think they just want me to be active and be productive in whatever I want. And yeah, hopefully I just want to put something out and make everyone stoked.
And with a dude that has grown up in the ski world with brothers and skiing has been all that you've ever known your entire life, what else do you do other than skiing?
So I'm like a sports fanatic. So like I'm on ESPN.com like all the time, watching SportsCenter, NFL Network, fantasy sports and all that. I'm pro at that also.
You're a Chargers fan. How do you get to be a Chargers fan coming from Quebec?
Well, I went to like a California vacation with my parents when I was 10 years old, and we decided to go to a Chargers game in San Diego when we were down there. And that was like the days of LaDainian Tomlinson, Drew Brees, and Antonio Gates. And yeah, just started falling in love with football after that, and they've been my team ever since.
That's a tough team to root for because they are known for not winning any meaningful games, so that sucks for you. Do you have any other American teams that you're fans of?
The Lakers right now because LeBron plays for them. But any team that LeBron plays for, I'll be a fan of.
Okay. And you're working on a 2-year project, it sounds like. Are you allowed to talk about that at all, or you want to keep that under wraps?
It was supposed to be a 1-year project with the Slvsh crew making a Slvsh movie. But since of the coronavirus, it kind of stopped plans for later in the season. So we're just going to try to make it 2 years and make it even better and doper. So I'm kind of stoked actually to make it a 2-year thing because I'm almost satisfied with what I got, but I for sure could get more and really put something good out there.
So when you call it a Slvsh movie, Slvsh is like a contest series, kind of underground and cool. But what's a Slvsh movie? Does it look at the contests and overview them, or is it something that's totally separate?
It'd be like kind of like video parts, and you kind of release them how they release the Slvsh cups. So it'd be like a couple segments per week, but mostly like guys that have been in the Slvsh cups and just really good skiers in general.
All right. Well, at this point in the show, I have something that's called Inappropriate Questions, and I find someone that you know and are close with to ask you 3 questions. This time I found a dude that you went to high school with. He's an Olympic Gold Medalist. His name is Christensen, and he came up with the 3 questions. I am going to cue them up right now. So how does it impact the life of an Olympic gold medalist? What were your plans before everything kind of fell apart last week?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, I was supposed to be in Andorra, getting there yesterday for about 3 weeks, full month and a half long Europe trip. It would have been our fifth Slvsh Cup in Andorra, and then we were going to do some testing over there and try and do some big mountain games and see if we can kind of expand into that market a bit more, but we had to cancel that, which really sucks.
So where are you now?
Just in Park City.
What is life for you? Are you staying at home bunkered up? What do you do now that the quarantine is kind of on?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, no ski resort skiing, but not much different from my usual day-to-day routine besides instead of going to the ski resort, we've just been touring or going out snowmobiling. But my mom's in her 70s as well, so I've been trying to keep myself as safe as I can so I can help her out with anything.
There is a school of thought that you should dial back what you're doing because if anything happens out where you're touring or whatever you're doing, because I'm sure you're not just chilling out there, that it could put a burden on the healthcare system as a whole. I've seen Mike Douglas and other people post about that. Do you take that into consideration at all, or are you just like, I still have to do my job a little bit?
Oh, no, 100%. We're also in the process of making a full-length Slvsh movie, but most everyone either has gone home, and I'm definitely trying to keep it a lot more mellow because I kind of tweaked my knee a week ago, and I can't even go see a PT or a doctor right now to even get that looked at or checked out, and luckily it's not bad, but yeah, if someone got pretty messed up and we're 40 miles out in the backcountry, between that being a little bit selfish and also if there's not even anyone available to come help. Yeah, I mean, I think most of us, at least here in Park City, are kind of toning back, not trying to go get some crazy shots or do anything wild right now. Because, yeah, like you said, if any of us break an arm or break a bone or get hurt in some way, yeah, that's just taking away the doctor's times from what they need to be focusing on right now.
All right, well, let's not talk about this virus anymore. Let's jump into some inappropriate questions. Do you have 3 questions ready for Vinny?
I know one thing, and it's more just a ski-related question, but kind of asking what he thinks of the introduction of airbags into our sport and how that's affected big air skiing. And or, on that same question, what his opinions are of the kids now in big air competitions ditching their poles and using shorter skis, not necessarily because they want to, but maybe because there's a little bit of a performance advantage to not using poles and having shorter skis.
Controversial one. What is your answer to that question?
I'm against it fully. Anyone trying to gain an advantage by ditching their poles so grabbing is easier or shorter skis so they can spin faster, I think it's disgusting. And that's one thing that FIS should do, is add a rule that you have to ski with poles unless you have a note from a doctor.
I have no problem with it. I believe it's just a different title. It's called aerials, and it's fine without poles and short skis.
Yeah, true. That's pretty much what it is, and it's getting to that with kids. Just, I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty much aerials with the airbags, and I don't know. It's not what it used to be, because now every kid can learn a trick within 2 days, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for you coming up, when you had to learn a hard trick, what did that take for you?
I just had to send it and hope for the best.
And there's a lot of pain and a lot of adjustments midair and more pain, and then you get it. How long did it take you to learn a really hard trick?
Not that long. What I used to do was just having a trick in my head, and then it was contest time, and I would try the trick in the contest for the first time. That's how I did it most of the time.
And then airbags, it totally eliminates a lot of the risk that goes into learning a trick. But you could also look at it as with your trampoline, you were probably eliminating some risk as well and learning some stuff there. Did you use the trampoline to learn all your tricks?
No, it's more about just having better air awareness, but I can't do any of the tricks that I do on the tramp. So it doesn't really translate for me.
All right, we will jump into question number 2.
Yeah, so we did a lot of stupid stuff in high school here in Park City. What would be your biggest injury running from the cops?
Yeah, so Park City, I would think I was 14 or 15. So running from the cops from Adam Battersby's house. He had a party. We were around the fire pit. And then we see the cops coming. And then me and my buddy Dakota just decided to start running. And it was around Old Ranch Road in Park City where there's farms and stuff like that. So started running, and then got caught in a barbed wire fence and got a scar on my stomach from it.
The funny thing is, Josh said that he has the exact same scar that you have from doing the exact same thing, running from someone and running right into barbed wire.
Yeah, same thing. Just a couple months earlier, he had his. But yeah, we have the same kind of scar on her body. Pretty funny.
Okay, we will jump into our final inappropriate question from Joss.
Out of all the new fads in skiing, what he hates the most between like the new wave style or like swerving around, not using poles, or more of like the airbag comp jock style? Because there's a lot going on in skiing right now, and there's definitely a lot to be opinionated on. And I guess I would like to know what he hates the most out of all the new styles of skiing.
I'd have to say the no poles, because that's really what gets me the most, especially when I go in the park in Park City and 80% of the kids have no poles. I think it's sad. I don't like it.
What did you think of the first variation of no poles when Pep, Andy, and Pollard stopped using them for a little while?
I thought it was okay, but I think their skiing would look better with poles if they had them. That's just my opinion, because no pole skiing, I feel like there's only Phil Casaubon that does it, and I can't talk shit because his is proper and it looks good. But That's about it.
All right, man. Well, those are inappropriate questions, and that's the podcast. I want to thank you for your time. I think the standout thing of your career is with the history that you and your brothers have, all three of you ooze so much style that no one else in skiing has ever had. While there are people that have a ton of style, you mentioned Casaubon, we talked about Henrik, yours is just so completely different than everybody else's that it's refreshing to see. And the tricks that you're doing on rails now, when I was working in the ski industry in 2005 to 2010, that period, if people were going to do those tricks on rails, they would be clowned and made fun of. I wouldn't have, because I also worked on the rollerblading side. But now it's fun to see that accepted, and just your tricks, while some people may consider them weird, they look so good. So thank you for your time and what you're doing on your skis, man.
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. Been listening since day one, and happy you called me to get on.
So that was time with Vincent Gagnier, and Vinny is young. He's like 27 years old, but he's already spent 17 years traveling and living the rock star ski life. Well, I don't know about the rock star life, because while he mentions partying a bit in the podcast, I didn't really find out about the dude's vices. There was just too much to talk about when it came to his misunderstood family and his injuries. While the other Gagniers have come and gone, Vinny should be here for a while if he can stay healthy. One of these days, I need to get his brother Charles on the show, if his English is better. That's the show for this week. At this point, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to ask you to do a huge favor for me. I want you to rate me on iTunes. If you have an iPhone, all you need to do is click on the podcast icon, search for the Powell Movement, click my logo, scroll down until you see the stars, tap 5 stars, and you're done. It takes about 45 seconds, and if you're on an Android phone, I have no idea how you rate me, but hopefully you can figure it out. You can also email me with any questions or concerns that you have. My email is mike@thepowellmovement, and I will get back to you. Finally, I need to thank my sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, 686, Spy Optic, Stanley, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.